Hey friends, we are back with another book review. We are reviewing Can Science Explain Everything by John Lennox. Let's jump in. Dr. John Lennox is a professor of mathematics at Oxford University and is himself a Christian involved in many religion and science discussions and debates. I love his accent, but this is one of my favorite books that he's written, and I have a handful of his books. But in this book, as you might guess from the title, he's discussing, can science explain everything? Is there a room to be both involved in science and to have a religious belief? As he himself is a Christian, you might infer that he's going to say, yes, there is room. And in this book, he's kind of going to unpack that. What does that look like to be a religiously faithful Christian, but also a serious scientist? What does that look like? Is that contradiction in terms? Some have argued yes, but he's going to argue no. And I love the way that he unpacks this. He argues that science is not the only thing that's founded on reason. So is Christianity, so is faith. And he also says that Christian belief is not the only thing that involves faith, so does science. So he's going to put lots of parallels between them in kind of undermining the basis of science itself and comparing it to that of one's belief system. That one ultimately has a belief system wherever they end up. And that just as science is founded on reason, so is his Christian faith, and that he's come to it and possessed it all this time despite lots of opposition through reason. So in this book, in addition to that, he also discusses the history of science. He argues that science is itself founded on many Christian ideas and founded by many Christians themselves who are the leaders and founders of many of the major fields in science. So he describes this shift of where we got to a culture that said that science and religion are really opposed to one another. And then he goes on later on in the book to kind of talk about other Christian beliefs. He talks about what do we think about miracles? How can one believe in science and miracles? And then he kind of unpacks that a bit to explain that science actually allows us and reason to identify miracles when they happen. And he explains the Christian concept of miracles and how many who argue that miracles are impossible misunderstand the definition of a miracle and what truly makes something a miracle. So, overall, in this book, he's going to argue that science can't explain everything that we've experienced and seen in the universe, even pointed out by science, such as the origin of the universe or the way that the universe exists. He explains that there's several ways of interpreting the data, and that even besides scientific understanding and theories, there must be something prior to that that helps us understand that, inform that, even have the ability to reason through it. So, in this book, Oxfordian mathematician John Lennox is going to argue that no, science cannot explain everything, and that Christian faith specifically gives a good foundation to science and helps fill in the gaps of what science cannot explain. And he argues that this is not a God of the gaps argument, but rather that it provides precisely what science itself cannot. And he gives lots of good pictures and examples of what that looks like. So I highly recommend that you check it out. I'm going to be judging this book on two bases, which is going to be the readability and the usability. Now, as far as the readability goes, like I said, it's 10 chapters long, 125 pages in length. So each chapter is going to be about 12 pages. There's not a lot on each chapter. The text is a little bit small, but it's a small little book. So it kind of fits right into my range of anything between 8 and 12 pages per chapter to keep me engaged. So as far as readability goes, it's a short book, straightforward, lots of visual examples that you kind of think through and imagine. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 on readability. As far as usability goes, it really just depends where you are in life, the kinds of questions that you're personally asking, and the kind of conversations you're having with skeptical friends. For me, as far as usability goes, this was a 5 out of 5, just to help me understand my thinking as someone who's passionate about science and loves science, but also is very grounded in my faith. And I was trying to understand, what does that look like to connect them? Do they supplement one another? What does that look like? How do I explain that to people who think that if you're religious, you can't have any part in science, or people who think that, if you are passionate about science, then you can't be religious? Because we hear that from both sides. And as a scientist who's passionate and faithful in his belief, Oxfordian mathematician John Lennox does a great job of explaining what that looks like and how you can articulate that to your family and friends who may not see eye to eye on this point. So, a 5 out of 5 on readability and a 5 out of 5 on usability. So, 10 out of 10. It's hard to go wrong with a short book that you could read in a weekend, and that's going to give you lots of good takeaways in understanding and in articulation to share this with other people. So, definitely want to recommend that you go pick this up. I've not heard a single negative review from my friends that I've recommended to go and read this book. So I will leave the link down below for you to check it out on Amazon. And if you read it, I would love to hear what your thoughts are in the comment section below. So circle back if you get to pick up this book. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.